Welcome back. We've been hearing about how luxury is making a comeback, whether it is luxury garments. You're seeing the wedding season kick off, big deals now being tailored over there, to luxury travel, and now even luxury cars that apparently are seeing the best sales that we've seen in as many as 3 years. Joining us to talk about this is Lalit Choudary, the chairman and managing director of Infinity Cars Private Limited. Lalit, you primarily deal with luxury cars. And you tell us, is it indeed true? Have you sold more BMWs, Mercedes, Audis in the last couple of months than you have in the last 3 to 4 years?
Well, 2021 has obviously been a much better year than the last year. Last year was COVID impacted. And while 2020 started off on a good note, we all know what happened post-March. So demand really only came back towards the later part of the year. But surprisingly to most of us in the industry, it's the cars that were more expensive, the 1 crore plus cars that flew off the shelves initially. And then demand then continued to the other price segments as well. Going into this year, 2021, business momentum is far better than last year. And clearly, I think all brands have probably achieved more volumes already in this year than in the last year. And that's reflective of the demand upsurge that we're seeing in the market at the current moment.
So now within luxury also, we can just say luxury, but it's a really big segment. Is there one particular segment within luxury which is doing better? If you can tell us whether it's to do with the price bracket, whether it's to do with hybrid cars, or even a model or, a brand?
Sorry, I couldn't hear that question. There's some background noise at your end.
I was asking you, Lalit, that when you're having one of the best times selling those luxury cars, luxury is a very broad term. So, what is more popular within luxury? What kind of a price segment? Is it super bikes? Is it the cars? Is it hybrid cars? Is it a particular
So it's
brand
clearly
which
the
stands
cars,
out?
and within the cars, we're seeing an increasing share of sales from the SUV segment. India wasn't too much of an SUV market some years ago. We've seen a noticeable shift towards SUV sales, and that's true across brands. We're also seeing a lot more demand in the higher price points than one had expected or one had anticipated earlier versus data from some years ago. So clearly, the market has come back, and it's come back strongly in the higher price segments. Um, I suppose if we did not have industry supply related constraints at this moment, you'd see a lot more volume than all brands are reporting. So it's a broad based recovery in demand, and it's a reflection of the pent up demand that perhaps has been subdued over the last year or two. That's resurfacing this year. So we're hoping that the coming months and then going into next year, we will see good business momentum.
Well, good morning. Nikunj also joining in. If I look at the comments which we are getting from global CEOs of some of the cars which you represent, especially BMW, all of them are indicating that the chip shortage is here to stay for another couple of quarters, which means the supply constraints would be there. How real is that for you? Is it a situation of more demand and less supply? I mean, that's a terrible spot to be in.
Okay, I'm not hearing very clearly, but I'm assuming it's related to the supply side constraints that you brought up as a question. So the concern currently in the world across all brands, I suppose, is sourcing of chips, and that's clearly affecting supply chain. There's also concerns around freight movement and potential delays in arrival of shipments. So all of this has had an impact on supply side constraints, and therefore demand is not being met, and we are seeing across brands in many product segments that the wait list is going into several months. So this concern is something that's come post-COVID and likely will outlast COVID. So most industry participants would probably believe this is a problem that will get fixed in the second half of next year. So in the interim, different brands have different levels of supply efficiencies. So some brands are more affected, some less. But by and large, the industry as a whole has been affected. But we believe once this constraint is dealt with, given all the demand upsurge and particularly the demand that's not being met with at this current moment, going into mid next year and thereafter, I would think that India will probably record its best ever numbers year on year in the foreseeable future. And that's what all of us in the industry are bracing for.
Can I safely say that all those discount offers, all the lucrative deals which we would get in and around Diwali and Dussehra, they are history now, and now auto companies for a change are commanding price?
Well, auto industry for the last 100 years has always worked on price points being attractive for inducing purchase. I think this is one of the few times in history that we're seeing, given the supply constraints, cars are flying off the shelves quite quickly. So all industry participants across price points are hence A, suffering on volume front because of supply constraints, and B, therefore margin focused. So I don't think the schemes will be as attractive as they were in the past. But I think the environment around us has also changed, and customers are quite happy and content with just getting good quality of service and ensuring that the right kind of car that they want is available or made available to them in the promised time frame. And that's the current theme in the marketplace. It may yet change going into next year and beyond, but at the current moment, I think there's probably more customers out there than there are cars across brands.
We are comparing a very different cycle of autos. The normal comparison for us is that we are asking companies and we are asking the representatives to tell us that how much of the COVID sales have gone to pre-COVID. But the auto industry was in a slowdown even before the COVID, whether it is 2018 or 2019. When do you see that things in a sense will normalize? When do you think the slowdown and the COVID impact and now supply constraints, all of them put together, will be over?
For various reasons, the auto industry has always been impacted for reasons external to the industry. This could be COVID. This could have been the supply constraints that we are currently seeing. This could have been in the past duty structures that are unfavorable or tax structures that make cars expensive. We've generally found that for some or the other reason, the industry does get the short end of the bargain when there is a external event. That being said, I think the best numbers that the industry recorded was back in 17-18. 2019 was a down year. It's an open secret that volumes were down that year. It was an election year, and India wasn't in the best of business health. Going into 2020, it continued the same theme, and then the market worsened given the COVID environment. But I think since late last year, post the economy opening up in the second half of last year, demand inched back, and as the year ended and coming into March of this year, demand was very strong. And while India went into a lockdown for a month or two in April, May, since then demand's bounced back as well. So I think where we are today is not very far from pre-COVID numbers on a monthly basis. Demand adjusted, it would be doing probably much better numbers. Just the fact that there isn't enough cars and supply constraints remain paramount. I think going into next year, the supply constraints will ease. Demand will likely come back much stronger. Let's not forget in auto retail and luxury auto retail, demand really never disappears. It only gets deferred. So people who haven't bought their car or haven't upgraded a car are yet in the market and probably will look to do so in the coming year or two if they haven't already done. So we genuinely believe there will be a huge upsurge in demand and maybe going out 12 months from today when supply constraints are sorted, you will see that India is going to record strong numbers. And compared to most international markets, India is a small luxury car market yet at this moment. So we genuinely believe that in the coming days, India will have a lot of catching up to do with global penetration rates and compared to other economies of similar size. So I think maybe in the next 3, 4, 5 years, you'll see huge year-on-year growth in the industry across all brands. And those who are well prepared with a good foundation of representation and product will probably reap the maximum benefits.
Okay, so as India plays catch up, brands figure out their strategy and, of course, tackle the global shortage of cars and bikes worldwide. What I'd also like to ask you, Lalit, is that where are you seeing the demand come from? Are these, individually and families, whether HNIs, ultra HNIs, or has the corporate side of the business picked up? The reason I ask you this is because it's a trend that, I'm just putting together. You have Nifty IT company, HCL Tech, openly talking about giving Mercedes to the top performers. You have the startup Bharat Pay giving 100 BMW superbikes to engineers. I'm sure it's a matter of time. Others will also start doing this if they haven't already.
Yeah, you bring up again an interesting point. The demand that we see during the COVID environment was largely from businesses, but not so much from corporate, because a lot of corporate was work from home. But now people are going back to offices, and therefore that demand is coming back quite strong. And we're seeing for the first time a lot of the people from the startup ecosystem buying these cars, not just the 40 lakhs and above cars, but also the cars costing a few crores and above. So the whole ecosystem around the startup community and the fund flows that are going there, the affluence that's being created, some of that is being channeled back into consumption. Clearly, the corporate segment, as they come back into the work from office kind of environment, will choose to upgrade their cars, which they haven't in the last year or two. And traditional businesses remain a strong bastion of demand. So it's broad based. It's across the various price points. It's starting from the 40 lakh, 50 lakh kind of price point, going up to the 4 crore kind of price point. And we're seeing the celebrities continue to purchase their cars. We're seeing corporate world returning. We're seeing the startup people coming into the buying category in a big way. And like you said, I mean, the car is an aspirational asset class, and people like to own the best car that their money can afford. And it's also a recognition of somebody's achievement in life to own a good car versus another car. So corporates have recognized that, and they're using that also as a tool to probably induce employment or ensure retention of employees. All of which is good for us, because when you compare this industry statistics for India versus other markets, you'll see that there's a lot of upside left. So it's each of these trends that's going to magnify and amplify in the coming days, which will eventually result in India becoming a market to reckon with in the luxury car segment.
Okay, so that's the boom that we're seeing also thanks to the corporates and startups that are buying this aspirational asset for their employees. Lalit, it's always a pleasure talking to you. Thanks so much for joining us today on The Market. See you back soon.
Likewise, thank you.